have a stretch program and do it daily, in 3, if not 6 months, they're going to see a huge difference in how they move. If we can focus on that as individuals, just showing up, whether it's a good day or a bad day, but you're giving 100%. And if we could do that, before you know it, 1, 3, and 6 months goes by, you've really made some progress. Once people get past the barrier of getting up, getting moving, and setting your mind to, okay, I'm going to start something. Individual lost 87 pounds. I saw him every single day. So I saw the progress. The one thing was to show up every single day.
Welcome everybody to another episode of Tao Project. Today we start season number 2 and we have a great guest. He was already here talking about working out discipline. We're going to explore why developing habits is very important, why that may be the key to your success. Jared, welcome to Tao Podcast, man. How are you?
I'm doing great. It's great to be back on here again. I think it's been, 3 months now, maybe a little over 3 months.
I think a little bit over 3 months. Time flies.
It does.
But last time we were talking about, the workouts.
Yeah.
And why some people may find challenges when they want to work out. And I think this is a great time because we are starting the year. That's a New Year's resolution for a lot of people. Go back to the gym, right? But before we dig in, why don't you tell us a little bit more about who you are, just like as a refresher for the audience and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm Coach Jared, and I work at Lifetime Fitness in Cary. I am a health fitness specialist. I have a broad spectrum of what I do there. One of my main tasks right now is training new trainers that come on as new trainers, building up their business and their clientele. I also do one-on-one training. I do metabolic testing, which is AMA testing or resting metabolic assessments. And I do some small group classes as well.
We met at the gym, and I really enjoy I was taking the Alpha class, right? Can you tell us a little bit more again what it's Alpha about? What is that type of classes?
Yeah, so we have 4 different classes at Lifetime, and they are catered to individuals' goals. Now, Alpha, the class you do, and as you've seen, I recommend supplement it with other classes. For example, maybe do 2 GTX classes a week, and then do 2 to 3 Alpha classes. Alpha is more strength and condition based. Mm-hmm. 2/3 of the workout is more weightlifting. It's more big compound movement. So it can be more intense or more intimidating, but we give modifications. We're doing deadlifts, squats, power cleans, and all your main accessory movements that you can do with functional equipment. Some of the other classes we do that I am fond of is GTX and Ultra Fit, which are more balanced, cardio based. So 1/3 of the workout is strength training, 2/3 of the workout is cardio. So that's why I say it's really good to supplement those 2 together. But yeah, Alpha, I've been teaching Alpha for 9 years. I know you've been in the class quite a bit. It's one of my favorite classes to teach. My schedule is crazy now, and it's something that I don't teach as much because I'm working and developing a lot of the new hires that come into Lifetime and helping their business and not only how they manage their business, but how they train and work with their clients. But Alpha is a good supplemented workout if you have a good foundation in your training.
And we talked last time about the importance of strength training, right? Yeah. But let's start with by the beginning, right? Like we are in 2026 now, and it's crazy how quickly time goes by.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, New Year's resolution was to go to the gym and start taking classes or, lose weight, develop new habits. It's known that people usually go the first weeks of the year and then they stop.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you think that happens? Is that like a motivational problem? Is that like a mentality problem? What do you think?
But it could be part of those things. I mean, we can dive deep into motivation or discipline. To simplify it, I think it's systems. James Clear says it perfect. I reference him if you haven't read that book, Atomic Habits, which we talked about.
Yeah.
We've both read. It's a phenomenal book. But James Clear states, when setting goals, think big. When thinking progress, think small. So in other words, what James is trying to say is build those habits daily. Even if you only get 10 or 15 minutes, still show up every single day if you can, of some sort. You can always do something in the gym or even outside of the gym that's going to build habits, but create a system that you can supplement into your daily routine. Yeah, the trend does fall off, right? And it tends to be towards the end of January. But I think if individuals realize that the progress is going to be small and they say, hey, this is going to be a journey depending on my goals, then I can set a good routine daily by setting smaller habits and build on that to get better. It does take time, and there's no majority of what we do in life is one of those things where we're just not going to succeed at a rapid pace. It takes discipline, it takes habits. So we have to focus on that day in and day out.
Do you think that people set those initial goals too aggressively, and maybe by the end of January they were expecting to, I don't know, gain like 20 pounds of muscle, like something non-realistic? Do you think that's one of the aspects?
I think that's a big contributor.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's great to set big goals. That's why I'm so big in setting small incremented goals, such as a 3-month goal. I think it's great to think of a year or a long-term goal, but I put discipline on reevaluation in every 1 to 3 months. How are we progressing, and where do we go from here? What habits have we instilled, or are we going to instill? Because, it's as simple as going for a run. If you're not a runner, and to be honest, if you don't really walk at a longer distance, you probably don't need to set a large run goal, right? Or at least plan to run. You're probably going to want to get some steps in, work on your gait, work on walking, and then slowly progress into running longer distance. So you're not set up for failure.
If I was a client right now and I come to you and I tell you, you know what, one of my goals is to, let's say, have a BMI test. I don't even know the name, but that the thing that tells you like the percentages of your body composition. What's the name of that?
So BMI is body mass index. We don't use that as much anymore. Where we see body mass index is mostly like military, and that's really based off of it's based off height and weight. For an individual or you who has stronger, dense, we do more weight training, we're going to be more in the obese category when we're really not obese. It's just because our height to weight ratio, right? So that's almost not used anymore. It's really just used in the military for metric systems. But what you're referring to is the InBody test. And there's many ways to get an InBody. You can get a DEXA scan. DEXA scan and InBody are two of the most common. DEXA scan is more expensive if your insurance don't cover it. And to be honest, there's not many around. They're mostly at universities where they're doing testing. But InBody is the most accurate. But that's going to get your body fat percentage, your skeletal muscle mass, your weight.
If I didn't know that was kind of an old concept, because when I started working out, that was the golden standard. Interesting. But let's say that I'm a client and I tell you, I want to lose weight, or I want to lose fat, I want to gain muscle. What would be a good goal for me to set, and in what time frame?
I think, number one, it all depends. But let's use an individual who says maybe they live a sedentary lifestyle. Maybe they haven't worked out for 6 months up to 3 years, let's just say, because individuals in the gym or just individuals in society, everybody ranges. Some people have been consistent with their workouts. Some people haven't worked out for 6 months. Some people haven't worked out for 3 years. But let's just say an individual, very standard, has a weight loss goal of 15 pounds. Say it's the first of the year, they have a weight loss goal of 15 pounds, and they haven't really been doing any weight training. They haven't been doing anything, and they wanted to create a better lifestyle, a healthier lifestyle. I would keep it as simple as possible. I would focus on a couple key points. One is, what is your time and what are you doing? How much can you devote to working out when it came to the working out aspect? So I would say if you could devote 3 times, let's start with 3 times a week. 3 times a week of strength training, which involves some cardiovascular health, some mobility work, some joint integrity. But let's start with 3 times a week first. Okay. I always say good, better, best. Good is 1 time a week. Better is 2 times a week. And best is 3 times a week. If somebody can devote that and focus on coming there and having a good structured program for 3 days, they're going to see progress. So I would recommend that. But when it came to the 15 pounds, I would say 1 pound, 1 to 2 pounds per week. And it sounds a little zealous, especially if you say 2 pounds per week. That's a lot. And some individuals that would be, I would argue, it's very difficult. But as long as you're making progress, I told somebody a few months ago, if you lose a half a pound, if you lose a pound a month for a whole year, that's 12 pounds.
Yeah.
And think about how much progress you can make, not only in just that 12 pounds of weight that was lost, but even in your bone density, in your muscle mass, and your body fat percentage. There's a lot of stuff that play into that. One thing on the InBody that we look at is a C, a D, and an I shape. The I obviously is straight down. The C looks like that in the alphabet C curve, and then we have a D curve. What we don't want to see is a C curve. C curve would mean your weight is very high, your skeletal muscle mass is really low, and your body fat percentage is high, which creates that C curve, right? So we'd like to get to an I, maybe possibly a D for more skeletal muscle mass.
Nice. Okay. So it really depends on where people are when they start working out, like the current state, what is what they are doing. It won't be the same goal for someone who is already working out, being a little bit consistent, compared to someone who just started.
Right. Everybody's goals tend to be a little bit different. I try to meet them where they're at. And what I mean by meet them where they're at is a lot of time it's evaluation of what they're currently doing and what they have the time for. We do have busy schedules. We work a lot. We have kids and obligations. So trying to find not just what they're missing, but what they can add to the workout. Or it could be as simple habits of just a better morning routine or better late night habits or early morning habits, but adding in a few things that you can do daily that in 2 or 3 months are going to make a large impact.
Even making new friends at the gym, right?
Making new friends. Yeah, the community.
One of the epidemics that experts talk about nowadays is an epidemic of loneliness that people, and I believe that is true. I can identify with some of those aspects. We are more in our phones. We are more like wearing headphones. And it's crazy the amount of people that you see at the gym wearing headphones. I'm one of those. I rarely talk to people. But I think it's important to create that connection. And that's what I find special about the classes, because you need to take your headphones off, put them away, listen to the coach, talk to people. If there's partner workout, you got to talk to the person. And I think that makes the journey more enjoyable.
Yeah, I agree. That is my favorite thing about the Alpha class and just the classes in general is the community. So many of the classes, if not all the classes, have a community built in them. I hear of so many individuals in the class where a large group of ladies are hanging out on the weekends, on Friday night, throughout the week. They're celebrating each other's birthdays. There's been moments where we've celebrated birthdays in the class. And there's a strong correlation with that community and longevity, right? We see it. And studies have shown that. But that's my just favorite part of the class is the community it builds and how much people can inspire one another. And you have somebody that, especially if it comes from, you have individuals who may have it worked out for a while or there's some fear or insecurities. You have that support from everybody. We all have those. And when it's one thing to do something alone, but when you have 2 or 5 people that support you, that makes a difference in the long run.
I feel that I work out harder when I'm surrounded by people.
Yeah.
I would rather work out with a group of people than by myself. Sometimes it gets a bit competitive too. And I think a certain level of being competitive is healthy in that way.
Yeah, it is. And part of the competitiveness is as long as you set a boundary on not overdoing it.
Yeah.
And overdoing it is really rare. But I think we all should be pushed past our limits to progress, getting out of your comfort zone a little bit, having a gentleman right beside you who may be doing a little bit more weight when you used to do more weight and you know you can do more weight. It pushes you to do 5, if not 10% more in your weight, and set some new goals for yourself.
Talking about these goals, it seems that it's more about the environment around to get to a goal rather than use that objective and be like laser focused on that. We need to take into consideration every single thing. What would you recommend for someone? Like, what would be like those smaller steps? If I wanted to attain my goal or get to my goal of, recovering mobility, which other aspects can I incorporate into that?
In terms of mobility work and recovery?
More in terms of how to get to my goal. Like, should I be focused just on the mobility? Should I consider something else? We were talking about the atomic habits, right?
Yeah.
And I remember one of the examples was that if someone wants to read more, maybe leave a book on your bed, on your pillow, right? Yeah. Because then you will get into your room and you will see the book right there, and that's going to encourage you to grab it at least, right? And just like feeling the book may encourage you to open it.
Yeah. One of the things I incorporate, I know for all my clients, and I instill in many individuals in the fitness world, we sit at a desk a lot now. And years ago, we didn't have that. Desk jockey syndrome, rounded shoulders, is in the 99% of individuals have that. We fly in an airplane, we ride in a car. We're just constantly rounded shoulders, and mobility is key. I'm a huge fan of strength training, but we could argue that mobility falls into joint integrity, keeping the joints healthy and strong. Not only would I recommend 5-10 minutes of mobility pre-workout, and you can incorporate some stretching, but have those on your off days. That one thing in particular you can do no matter what. And talking about a habit, even if you don't go to the gym that day, even if you don't push some heavy weight or do cardio or go for a run, if an individual can take 10 to 15 minutes, have a stretch program and do it daily, in 3, if not 6 months, they're going to see a huge difference in how they move.
Yeah.
But it doesn't take much. I will say this, and I try to instill this in most individuals. It's usually the first 2 to 5 minutes that's the hardest. Okay. The first 2 to 5 minutes is the toughest. James Clear talks about a story where his personal trainer, which I can relate to, has a class I can relate to similar to Alpha. And that in particular day, it was on a Wednesday and it was just cold and rainy. The class normally had 10 to 15 people. On this in particular day, early in the morning, this coach only had 2 individuals. Nothing changed in the workout. The only thing that was hard was the 2 to 5 minutes to get up on a cold, rainy day when you're tired, when you're sleepy, when you want to stay in. Nothing changed in the workout. The workout was the same. Some would even argue that Wednesday's workout was one of the easiest workouts. But I think once people get past the barrier of getting up, getting moving, and setting your mind to, okay, I'm going to start something. How many times have we said, I don't want to do this, but then you start to do it for 2 to 5 minutes, and before you know it, you complete the task. Yeah. So I think the first 2 to 5 minutes is the most important. I've said that for years, and now we have many experts that agree with that in terms of creating habits. So the stretching is tedious, is hard. The walking is hard. The weight training is hard. But let's just simplify it and say, all right, an individual, let's work on that mobility. Give me 15 minutes every single day. And we could build on that. Once we get 15 minutes, we can go from there and set some bigger goals. But let's focus on the first 2 to 5 minutes. Yeah. Get in there, do it, set it up daily. Some days are going to be tougher than others, but if you could do it on your hard days and grow on it, it's gonna make good systems and good habits.
You've trained people, high performance athletes, right? Mm-hmm. What do you think is that difference between how they train and a normal person like me? What's that? What makes them high performance athletes?
I think it's the obligation to get it done.
Okay.
And I'm going to break that down. I think when your why is deeper than the task, it drives you to complete the task. So for a high performing athlete, whether they be amateur or pro, there's probably money involved. And 2, they've done it day in and day out. So their mindset is just going back to the habits. They've created a habit. They know how they feel, and they know how they will perform if they practice and train hard enough. So for a normal individual, not on a high performing athletic standpoint, it goes back to we're no different in regards to the routine. Okay. We may be different in regards to the performance, but in terms of the routine, we're not any different. They just complete the task daily because it's an obligation.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if we can condition ourselves to focus on making sure it gets done, let me instill these habits just like others have done. My habits may be different than yours, and your habits may be different than somebody else. But if you can focus on those, you can grow on them.
Yeah. I was listening to, it was a video. They were talking about the Brazil soccer team. And I think before 2002, they were fantastic. I mean, they are the best team in the world for soccer, right? Historically speaking. And they were attributing that the style, the Brazilian style, was derived or was created at the favelas, on the streets, on very dangerous situations, low income, very specific, similar to what happened to a lot of successful boxers. It's well known that a lot of like trained and fantastic boxers, they start like, it's this profile of a low income kind of living in a dangerous area, and then they succeed and they become like the superstar of boxing. And the same happened to the Brazilian team. They were saying like, like these fantastic players, they were developed on the streets. And now we come to this era where, like all these talent hunting people, they catch them when they are like maybe 12, 15 years old. So then, and they take them to a large club in Europe. So they don't have the same, you cannot compare these two profiles.
Yeah.
Because we are living in different times.
Different times, it all comes down to tenacity, man.
Yeah, exactly.
The tenacity isn't as, it's not out there as much.
And I think that comes to what you were saying, like you had a motivation, like it was your environment. You had something that it's in your nature to keep going, right?
Yeah.
But for people who don't have that not motivation, I would say more, I think obligation was the right word that you were talking about. I don't have the obligation, right? But I think what motivates me is not necessarily the fact that I'm working out, but the long term and the health. How am I gonna get when I'm old? I want to be healthy. I want to move.
Yeah.
And I think that for me is my motivation, right? Do you have an example of someone that you said like, wow, this person did a great job in terms of developing these habits? How did they do it?
One example I would use is from years ago. I would say 10, 11 years ago. This was at a club I was at. I was at Snap Fitness, and an individual who worked out there, very small gym. I mean, I'm trying to think of the amount of members we had, but it's nothing like Lifetime Fitness and Cary now. And so you get to know every single person that walks through the gym. Long story short, this individual lost 87 pounds.
Wow.
87 pounds. I saw him every single day I was in the gym. So I saw the progress, and it was probably into 3 months. I spoke to him, and he started training with me probably halfway through the progress. And he said, the one thing I focused on, the one thing was to show up every single day. And he had a rest day, but for the most part, he showed up every single day. And he said some days it was 5 minutes, some days it was 10, some days I eventually got to where I was working up to 30 minutes, but I knew I had to lose weight, and I showed up every single day. And at the time, at a younger state of my life and processing that, and he said, the reason I did is because I wanted a good system. I wanted good habits, because I knew if I missed one day and I got away with it, one day was going to turn into 2 days. So he knew he had to instill those habits, even if it was just going to the parking lot, going in, doing a couple stretches and leaving. He wanted that routine. And I was thinking about that the other day. I forgot about it years later. The individual ended up losing 87 pounds and getting into some strength training. But he created some good habits pounds that were lost in creating, even did strength training, right?
Yeah.
But in his mind, he wanted to build the habits and to grow from that and to get into a routine where he can do 30 to 60 minutes throughout the week. And I think if we can focus on that as individuals, just showing up, whether it's a good day or a bad day, if we can just show up, remember our consistency, if we look at the chart, it's up and down for everybody, whether it's a pro athlete or a very sedentary person. As long as you just show up, you're putting effort. And to argue, you're giving 100%. You might not feel 100%, but you're giving 100%. Yeah. And if we could do that, before you know it, 1, 3, and 6 months goes by, you've really made some progress.
Commitment is that, right? Just showing up and do something, right? Like not just show up and take selfies and just post it on social media.
Yeah.
That's something I've been doing recently. I have my personal, and I'm tracking the number of days where I'm doing the habit that I want to develop.
Yeah.
And every week I check, okay, this week I did it 3 times, this week 4 times. Yeah. And it changes, like it varies. It's not consistent. But I think just the fact that I'm tracking that, it's been helping.
Yeah. One of my mentors told me it's okay to miss one day, but don't miss 2 days in a row, because then it becomes another habit, right? Okay. I was like, wow, that makes a lot of sense. So in other words, he was saying things happen. We have stuff that come up in our life, and we do get caught up with kids and work and obligations. Those do happen. And if we miss a day, just don't make it another habit that we have to break. And that habit being not showing up and not completing the task.
Yeah. That's very interesting. 87 pounds. That's a lot.
It was a lot. But it was over time. I would say on my end, from viewing it, it was healthy. And this is over a course of, this is probably 14 to 16 months that weight was lost. So it wasn't rapid.
Yeah.
So it was over a year. But I that quote lives rent free in my head. I just created systems. I didn't do any magic. I can't take credit for it because, it was only the last half of it that it was strength training, which was great. And there was some benefit there. But even me as a coach, at the time, I don't know if I could have got that individual there. That individual knew I needed to make some systems and habits, right? I needed to get a momentum going, some momentum, and grow from it and get into the gym consistently. And then once I start losing some weight, now I'm getting a spark of motivation. Now I can really, really focus on more goals.
Yeah. So last time, Jared, when we were talking about strength training, we mentioned some of the benefits that come with it, right? Especially when we are getting older, right?
Yeah.
I just made my parents join a gym.
That's awesome.
Because I care that, they are getting older in case they fall down, broken bones and more complications. But I think building muscle is really good for that. Can we just quickly recap why strength training is beneficial for people?
Absolutely. There's many benefits to strength training. As we age, to be exact on the numbers, around mid-40s, we start to lose muscle mass at a more rapid pace. So it's key as we age to continue to weight train, to develop and do weight-bearing exercise. Because if not, as we age, we lose muscle mass, and every year it gets harder and harder to put back on. Can we put it on? Yes. I've seen it in the individuals 60, 65, and 70, but it's just harder.
Yeah.
Which we can argue that it helps with stability and balance. The more muscle mass, the more strength you have. So falls decrease in older individuals. Reaction time is a lot better. Stability is a lot better. If you do it in a proper way, you're going to be less prone to injury, or if injured, not as prone to getting injured, but you're going to recover a lot quicker, I should say. So yeah, the list goes on and on. But I will say too, is you tend to burn more calories, and some would say you even burn more fat through weight training or strength training. So there's many benefits, as we spoke on last time.
And I was reading that, it's not exactly like this, but the message I got is weight training can make you smarter. because it has a direct impact on the brain. And have you heard of that? Like it kind of strengthens connections in the brain, or helps also cognitive abilities.
Yeah, it can. And part of that is, man, we can go down a rabbit hole in talking about this, but I think part of that is firing off neurons and what makes your cognitive function better. And I think it's almost like a confidence, right? Just to make it in simpler terms. But the more you can do consistently in the weight room helps brain function. We've seen that.
Yeah.
Just like walking. I think walking can be in the same category, not as intense, of course, but walking, if you take an individual's brain activity and you see it from being very sedentary, and then an individual goes on a 30-minute walk and their brain activity and how much it goes back to when we were kids in recess, right? If we didn't have that recess, we were probably going to crash at some point and not be as focused. I was barely focused as it was. But if we look back and we look at certain studies, activity for 30 to 60 minutes, whether it's just more cardiovascular or strength training, we really don't see a difference. And I think that's why it's so important to just complete more tasks along with your weight training, along with your walking, along with being more physically active.
A combination of so many different things, right? We have so many different training styles, and each one provides different benefit. I remember a few years back, one of my coaches, I used to do boot camps outdoors. Something I miss about that is that because it was outdoors, your body had to adjust to the different temperature. It didn't matter if it was snowing. We were outdoors and we were working out. And I feel that I didn't feel sick, or I didn't get like colds or allergies. I feel that my body got used to adjusting to different temperatures, and I felt healthier in that way. Back then, the HIIT trainings, the high, what's the acronym?
High intensity interval training, HIIT. It's HIIT with two I's, so it confuses a few people. High intensity interval training.
I think it became famous some time ago, and when I was working out, everybody was doing that type of workouts because it was explosive, and like you give everything in a short periods of time. How do you compare that type of training with strength training?
Yeah, HIIT it tends to be a little bit shorter. Last time we talked about zones. HIIT training tends to be a zone 3, if not a zone 4. It's really high intense. If individuals want, so to say, the best bang for their buck or the best out of their time, I would recommend HIIT training. If they don't have a lot of time in their style of training, I would recommend HIIT. HIIT is very intense. It tends to be less weight, but it's a shorter workout. HIIT could range anywhere from 10 minutes to probably 30 minutes, but the brain function and the brain activity from HIIT training is through the roof, more than a long duration of strength training. And I would argue if an individual really wants to be focused more in their craft, more in their work environment, more day to day, supplementing creatine, preferably 10 grams for an individual with HIIT training, and they will tell a huge difference every single day. Individuals that want to help with their performance, I say 5 to 7 grams, depending on how much they weigh. If they really want high performance and better brain function, I would recommend 10 grams. I started doing 10 grams 6 months ago, and it's made a huge difference.
Wow.
Yeah. It's made a huge difference. And I started doing high intensity interval training along with my strength training. So I reduced my strength training just a little bit, not much. And I take 10 to 20 minutes to do some form of HIIT 2 or 3 times a week, along with the creatine. I doubled it. I started doing 10 grams. And it seems like it's paid dividends in the long run, and how my brain functions, how alert I am, how focused I am.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Makes a huge difference. I don't even consume as much caffeine anymore. I have my coffee in the morning. My pre-workout doesn't have caffeine in it. And I love caffeine. I used to consume a lot up until before noon, preferably no later than 1. But now I have just as much focus and alertness.
Do you feel that you can handle stress different too?
Stress, not at the moment. Yeah, stress is a different one. We can talk about cortisol levels and stress.
Yeah.
I think I handle stress a little bit better now, just because I'm teaching myself to be more present So I don't know if it has to do with the workouts or creatine. For me, preferably, I am sane with my workouts, preferably in the morning, so I can go out my day and be focused and know I worked out for the day. It's the same thing as making your bed for me. I think making your bed is the most important thing because it's your first task that you complete. I think working out is similar, whether I do 20 minutes of mobility work or a 60-minute weight training workout. I feel complete. In terms of stress, absolutely. It helps a lot. Plus, you got to imagine the stressors that are in your body during a workout. So if you have a high intensity workout and your heart rate is higher than what is at resting, a good decent amount, you could argue you're later on in that day, your cortisol levels are going to go lower.
So working out turns out to be like a therapy, reducing.
That's how I got into fitness. It was the
Wow.
best therapy, man. All joking aside, I think it's the best therapy.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's very important, and I feel that people are taking that more seriously nowadays. Working out, having a formal training, and understanding this concept.
I would agree. When I was in school years ago, it was nowhere near as popular. In fact, we did a lot of different, with some grad students, we did a lot of or you would help the grad students in research, and it just wasn't as popular. Some of the stuff that was being tested and reviewed is now coming to light in this new age. It's a new science, and I think people are catching on to it. And I know they're realizing the benefits of how important it is, especially nowadays. Years ago, we talked last time about the different time frames in life, and years ago, there was a lot more hard manual labor, which was so important. We're meant to be mobile and in motion. And now it's just not as much. Even at times when I'm not on my feet, where am I at? I'm at a desk doing work. And yes, that was years ago, but not as much as it is now. And I think testosterone and hormones are changing for the worse. And I think that it just makes an impact. And that's why I think mobility and movement is so key. And to be in motion. And people are catching on to that. They realize that they need to be in motion. They feel better.
Another type of workout, I consider that a workout because I took a few classes, yoga.
Yeah.
Right? It's very different. It requires a different type of breathing too.
Yeah.
But I mean, every time I take a class, I feel like maybe 3 years younger.
And it's so great, isn't it? One thing my wife and I talked about and incorporating about 3 months ago, and we've been doing Tia's class. Shout out to Tia. She's at Lifetime. Have you ever done Tia's class?
Oh yeah, she's awesome.
Oh, Tia's great. I love Tia, and her class is so zen and relaxing, and you feel so much stress released from your body. It's hard to do, especially if you have goals to, hey, I got to just build more muscle and put on or get more mobile or whatever your goals may be. It's hard to incorporate. I got to add something else now. But if you have a good routine set, and you can just take one day to do some breath work or yoga or Pilates, I think it pays dividends. And I personally feel like it would actually help your performance in the weight room. I really do. Because we're already go, go, go all the time. And I think we need more moments where it's quiet and where we can relax, work on breath work and stretch. And Tia's class is great. In fact, I'm going to try to do it Saturday.
Oh, nice.
She might be already booked, but I'm going to try to get in there.
Her class is always packed.
It's always packed.
Yeah.
It's on the waiting list most times.
We'll try to have Tia here because she's such a vibrant human being. Like she's always smiling, and she speaks Spanish too.
Oh wow!
Yeah, well, she always has something interesting to say.
Yeah,
she's really cool.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, many trainers at Lifetime, they take her class or any type of yoga, and they feel the same. That is, they feel rejuvenated, and they feel younger, and more vibrant. But it's also very interesting to, and I was talking to my girlfriend about this, some research that people were doing about the effects of yoga in the brain and the type of movement, and it was really interesting that I was reading that some studies about people doing the cat-cow movement, it's like a spinal movement.
Yep, absolutely.
That actually has a very interesting effect on cleansing the brain.
Interesting. Just that one in particular movement.
They were just studying that one. But in general, yoga has that effect. I mean, when it's done with the proper breathing technique, which is more on the belly, when we are working out, it's more like on the chest, right? Like you're breathing and it's more on the upper side.
Yeah.
But the lower side type of breathing creates a different pressure in the system. I mean, even on your brain. And that helps release some of the trash in the brain. So they found that people doing either yoga and this cat-cow movement, their brain looks younger and helps prevent even Alzheimer's disease, right? Which is very, very concerning and very, very, very sad type of disease.
Yeah.
But it's really interesting how we are discovering all these topics.
I'm going to piggyback off what you just said in brain activity in yoga. I think a part of that is presence.
Yeah.
Is being more present. We live in a world of technology, and so much studies have done on this. We live very tense on the computer in front of a screen. We are on a screen daily, whether it's through entertainment or work. And if you think about it, if you do 60 minutes of yoga, what goes on in that yoga? It's very relaxing, stretching, presence, focus, concentration. You're in your mind. And I think that has a lot to do with brain function and activity.
Yeah. Like doing yoga, like really teaches you how to be more aware of different parts of your body. And I agree with you that can improve your performance, because performance also comes with technique.
Yeah.
Right? But if you have a good technique, you got to be very aware of the different muscles in your body.
Yeah.
And I think yoga is a great training for that, just being aware.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and breathing. Breathing is... When I also, on that regard, I was reading that sleeping on your side helps a lot cleaning the trash in the brain. Just sleeping. That's great.
I've heard of a lot of people that snore sleeping on their side. I've heard of numerous individuals say that one technique they use to quit snoring, light snore, they sleep on their side and they quit snoring. They don't snore as much.
Wow.
Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. I don't know the data on that, but yeah, I've had individuals tell me that. It makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very into that last night, and I was even checking if sleeping on your right side is better than sleeping on your left side. Some people attribute nightmares with sleeping on your left side.
Interesting.
But you have different type of outcomes, because sleeping on your left side helps digestion, because your stomach is more on the right side. So sleeping on the left really helps, even with against acid reflux, for example.
I wonder if a dominant side has anything to do with that. Like if you're, for example, if you're right side dominant, if you sleep on your left side, if that contributes to nightmares.
Ah,
See?
Maybe that I don't know.
Yeah.
But the other thing I was reading, which I thought it was very interesting, strength training can help improve the microbiome in your gut, which I wasn't expecting that. How can that happen? Like lifting weight can help the microbiome.
Yeah. I think there's a couple phases to that. I don't know the data on that. I do agree with that 100%. But I think for most individuals I think that if we look at that, I think it gets a little skewed. I think naturally, if you strength train, you should, and most people start to eat a little better, which helps with that, right? Yeah. Another thing too is they ingest a little bit more protein, which gives them more glutamine. Huge fan of glutamine. I think we talked last time on the importance of glutamine and how much that helps in regards to your gut health. So I don't know how much is through the diet along with strength training, or if it's just mainly strength training. I will say, if you do strength training properly, wherever you're at in your phase of training, if you're doing it the right way, you're engaging your core. And I think we can argue to an extent that helps with gut health.
One aspect, Jared, that we haven't talked about, but I think is very important, is the recovery aspect. And I think that's another habit, right? A lot of people are stressed. They don't sleep a lot. Some people may sleep 3, 4, 5 hours. I don't know if that's the best thing to do, but...
No, it's not.
Yoga is one way of recovery, but sleep, I think, is the...
Sleep is the number one recovery agent that I would recommend. It's especially in today's world, it's the hardest. And sleep comes down to habits just like anything else. Your strength training, your morning routine, your walking habits, your stretching, you name it. It's very similar. And it can be very difficult, especially when us living at a very social life, and in a social life where we have a big community and a community of friends and gatherings. But if an individual can make a routine to go to bed, go to sleep around the same time every night, and to create a habit of getting up at the same time every morning, every single day becomes easier. Even if an individual only gets 4 or 5 hours of sleep, if they can try to still get up at the same time of day, they're going to possibly sleep better the next night and create a routine where it gets easier and easier over time.
It's very important. And when we were talking about the HIIT training and how that can help kind of switch in the nervous system between like being alert to being relaxed and help cognitive abilities, I remember someone telling me that people who do HIIT training, but they don't recover properly, it can be prone to anxiety.
Yeah.
Because they gotta get the rest. They gotta let the body recover and let the brain recover.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, so that's like HIIT is a good workout, but recover. Otherwise, it's gonna play against you.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. This has been a very interesting conversation, Jared.
Yeah.
And the other thing that a lot of people don't consider a workout, but it's actually a really cool workout, is dancing, for example, right? Like all this type of coordination related movements. And so the other thing I was reading too was this kind of workouts help people increase their white matter in the brain. What that means is that you work on neuroplasticity. So people can even become more creative when do this type of coordination exercises. And it's a great thing to be. I don't know if this is the final outcome, but what I feel is that life becomes a little bit more interesting by doing this kind of activities.
Yeah.
Because there's like a different part of the brain that gets active. The only problem, and we have talked about that, is that you got to keep doing it, right? And it comes with habits, it comes with discipline, it comes with finding little things that help people go to where they want to be. Their goals, but like it's a whole set of things. It's not like just one single thing. It's a lot of things.
Yeah,
I feel that for me, my ideal day would look like I do some breath work.
Yeah,
I do some strength training.
Yep, I love it.
And some cardio.
Yeah, and it is a lot, but I want any individuals listening to this and amongst our conversation to know to keep it simple. It's so easy I feel like we talked about a lot today, but in fact, I know we did, but it's important to just very, 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 very much so keep it simple. Yeah. Just keep the process very simple. What you just said, your breath work, your strength training, your cardio. I love that, man. That's simple. You got your routine, and if I miss that day because I'm sore or just not feeling it, my cortisol levels are high, I'm going to do some yoga. I'm going to take the opportunity to do Tia's class or another yoga class. Yeah. So, I think that's key in the routine, in the habit.
Exactly. Jared, it's been a great conversation. Is there anything else you want to highlight for people? Any shout out?
None in particular. I feel like we had some good conversation, and I firmly believe in the foundation of strength training. I think we can get so much out of strength training. We could argue we can even hit on a little bit of cardiovascular in that strength training and even mobility work. So if for any listeners out there, if you're wondering where to start or what should I do, one, I recommend possibly reaching out to a coach in your area, somebody that you trust, possibly a referral. And even if it doesn't go as far as that, to just take the time to do 30 minutes of activity every day. And if 30 is too much, cut it in half, do 15 minutes of activity. This could be stretching. It could be walking. I'm a huge fan of walking. It could even be some form of light or even heavy weight training for 15 minutes. But
Good.
do work 15 to 30 minutes to start and just build from that.
Where can people find you?
So you can find me at Lifetime Fitness in Cary in person. I'm there most of the time, I feel like. Through social media, you can find me at coachjb.cpt. Yeah, that's where you can find me.
Thank you so much, Jared. We learned so much in these conversations, and I would love to have you back with more topics related to workouts and having a healthy life.
Absolutely. Good to be back on here again.
Thank you so much, Jared, and thank you, everybody, and see you next time.